Hey Internet, my name is Julian and I'm back with another movie review. This past week I reviewed Life, and two other movies came out alongside of that, Power Rangers and Chips. And if you haven't checked out my Life review, go ahead and click the link right here to check it out. But we'll just jump right into Power Rangers. Now the story of Power Rangers is based off the live action show from the early 90s and progressed on till I think even nowadays they have Power Rangers TV show. But this story focused mostly on the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers from the early 90s. It is definitely retelling, and as Hollywood becomes saturated with a lot of content, there's not really a lot of originality left, so they have to kind of fall back on classic tales or nostalgia, so they kind of did that with Power Rangers, and it's definitely there. You definitely get the nostalgia feel of the I-I-I's from Alpha and just a little bit of mentioning from the TV show that kind of brings up those old feelings. Most of the characters' names are still the same. You still have, Jason and Kimberly and Billy, Zach, Trini. So it's all there. Now, the story was directed by Dean Israelite, and it's starring some new faces, but also had some voice acting by some veterans. It's starring Dacre Montgomery, Naomi Scott, R.J. Seiler, Becky G, Luddy Lynn, Bill Hader, Bryan Cranston, and Elizabeth Banks. The story follows the TV show. So the story is just as cheesy and kind of lame as the TV show was, but that's what made the TV show good. There's a lot of story at the beginning, and it's needed because there plans to be 6 movies total for the Power Rangers saga that they're doing. So this definitely has a lot of build-up and not a lot of action. There's training scenes, but I wouldn't really call that action. It really doesn't get into it till like the last third of the movie, where they start fighting and they bring out the Megazord. Spoiler if you haven't seen the trailers. But there's a lot of flaws with the movie. Yes, it brings back those feelings of being a kid again and watching the TV show and all the nostalgia that comes with it, but that doesn't mean it's a good movie. The CGI was okay. The suits looked pretty cool, but they weren't great. I mean, they were based loosely off of the original from Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. My biggest concern, honestly, and flaw for this movie is Rita Repulsa. Not that it has to look exactly like her. It just doesn't look like her really at all. I like the story that they added behind her and how she was originally the Green Ranger. I like the additional story that they added for Zordon, which is pretty cool, and more of a backstory from where the Power Rangers came from, which was cool. Just her overall character was just not good. Her acting was not great. They did this weird speed up thing for like her to like speed run or like speed attack, and it looked really bad. And granted, the TV show didn't look that great, but this is a motion picture from Hollywood, so you're expecting the best, and it just wasn't. There's a lot of good things, though, about the movie itself. Like I said, the story's pretty cool. It definitely brings more to it than just, getting a bunch of kids together to fight this villain. The effects for Zordon were pretty cool. Alpha, which I thought was going to be a train wreck, actually, from the previews that they showed of him and from the concept art, I thought it was going to look terrible. But when Alpha came on the screen, I was actually quite surprised on how good he looked. So, there's some good and bads. And they're kind of even. It's not like everything's really good except for one thing. It's kind of like there's really good things and then there's really bad things. There are definitely some points in the dialogue that you couldn't hear, especially at the end when they're in the Megazord talking to Rita Repulsa, and it literally goes from being able to hear to then like having Rita Repulsa, like the shot pan over to Rita Repulsa, and it just like cuts dialogue like completely, like it's mumbled almost. And then when it goes back to viewing on the Megazord, you can hear them again. So I don't know if they were trying to do this like weird thing where it's like, oh, this is from like Rita's perspective. But if that's the case, I mean, you couldn't really hear anything what was being said, and you kind of like were trying to figure out what they were talking about at one point. So that's another bad thing. And it was kind of throughout the movie there was parts that were kind of inaudible, and it wasn't just that scene. Another big thing that I kind of missed from the TV show that they kind of lacked on was fighting the putties. And the putties are essentially the henchmen of Rita Repulsa. And in the movie, they actually look pretty cool, and it was a pretty cool idea. In the TV show, they're like this gray suit, not suit, but like skin suit type people that they fought. In this, they were actually like rock creatures, which I thought was a cool change. It was pretty awesome. It made the story feel more realistic, I guess you can call it. That they're not just like these weird, like, no face, no body characters. They're actually something. The story around Rita with the gold threw me off a little bit. To make Goldar, I understood like where they were coming from, but it seemed like she was kind of a person obsessed with gold. It made me feel like she was like Goldmember from Austin Powers, which kind of was a turnoff. Goldar looked pretty cool. The Megazord looked pretty cool. When transformed all together. The Zords themselves looked pretty okay. I couldn't really tell what the black Zord was. It used to be, I believe, in the TV show, like a woolly mammoth type thing. In this, it was just kind of like a creature with what looked like, I don't know if it was a tusk or like a trunk or something. It wasn't close though. Everything else is kind of pretty close. Jason the Red Ranger had his T-Rex. Kimberly had the pterodactyl. Trinity had the saber-toothed tiger, and yeah, I mean, everything else is pretty spot on. So there are flaws, but the movie is still entertaining, and it brings you that nostalgia that you want. Everything on the audio was pretty good. There are parts where like the music doesn't really fit with the scene. And as I said previously in another review, if you don't have a good soundtrack, you can't have a great movie. So there's just parts where I felt like the soundtrack was off and it didn't really fit the emotion of the scene. Which, if it's sorrow and sadness and, everything's kind of gray, you don't want to have a happy, upbeat moment, music playing in the background. So, and I'm not saying that happened in this movie, but there were instances where it just didn't feel like that soundtrack should have been played for that scene. There were definitely a lot of parts where the camera work made it feel really dizzy. Especially at the beginning, there's a scene with Jason driving a truck and he's being chased by the cops, and they do this weird pan thing in the truck where it's like goes to look in the rearview mirror and the camera like goes with it and then pans pans out inside of the car, outside to the back, and then back to his perspective. And it's like really weird because like it does it quite a few times, and you're just like, you start to kind of feel your head spinning a little bit. Now back to nostalgia, they had some great cameos. They had, like I said, some great lines that were brought back from the original. Bryan Cranston himself is a throwback to the original because he did voice some characters in the TV show. So that was a cool nod to it, and I'm glad that he was in it because him and Alpha were actually probably my favorite parts of the movie. He embodied Zordon pretty much spot on, how I feel like Zordon should be, and I felt that was pretty cool. Bill Hader as Alpha was pretty great. He was definitely funny when he needed to be, and I thought it was cool. Now, as for, like I said, and the top of the show, I guess you could call this, the top of the review, there's supposed to be 6 movies in this saga, so this is the first of 6. So there are end credit scenes or mid credit scenes for this movie that I recommend staying around, especially if you are interested to see everyone's favorite character, Tommy. You They don't make his debut, but it's kind of a glimpse into what they're looking to do in the next movie. So that's pretty cool. Overall, the movie is fun. It is a little slow at the beginning and then definitely picks up. It's entertaining, but I wouldn't say it's a great movie. I really hope that they make the next one better. And throughout Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, Rita Repulsa has always been kind of like that main villain. So I don't know what they're going to do, especially with what happened to her at the end of this movie. I don't know where they're going to go. I don't know if they're going to bring in a new villain. I didn't really follow any of the newer Power Rangers storylines after the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. I think it was season 1 and 2. So I don't know if like Ninja Dino Rider Power Rangers or Police Time Cop Power Rangers or whatever kind of storyline is going to be jumping in here and they're going to use villains from there. But we'll see. If they do use Rita, I hope that they kind of make her better because she was probably the worst part of that movie. So yeah, that's really it I have for this movie. If you love nostalgia and you love the Power Rangers from the olden days, I definitely recommend going see it because you'll get everything you want. But if you're looking to go see a great movie, probably wait till Redbox to watch this movie then. Or Netflix. I'm sure it'll be on there. So that's really it for me over here. If you liked my review, go ahead and give us a like. If you want to see more reviews in the future, go ahead and subscribe. And go ahead and share it with your friends and family. If there is any comments or questions, I'd love to hear them in the comments below. And I'll try and get to you as often as I can. Well, that's it for me, so thanks for watching. Till next time.